The night before my wedding to the man my family had chosen for me, my phone lit up with a message that stopped my heart cold. "Wife, I'm waiting for you at the airport." It was from Brielle, the woman who had become my entire world in secret. I sat there in the opulent suite at the Plaza Hotel in New York City, the white wedding gown hanging like a ghost in the closet, my hands trembling as the weight of years of lies pressed down on me. The clock on the nightstand read 11:15. And in less than 15 hours I was supposed to walk down the aisle toward Marcus Tran, the son of my father's business partner, a good man from a good family, who would merge our import empires and finally make my parents proud. But that text changed everything in an instant. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. Talia Nguyen, 29 years old, successful marketing executive, daughter of Lon and Min Nguyen, pillars of the Vietnamese American community in Queens. On paper I had it all. On the inside I was drowning. I had agreed to this marriage 6 months ago after months of gentle then not so gentle pressure from my parents. It wasn't just about me, they said. It was about the family, the business, the future of the company my father had built from nothing after arriving in America with 2 suitcases and a dream. Marcus was kind, respectful, and he loved the idea of our families uniting. He didn't know about Brielle. No one did. Not my parents, not my sister Lynn, not the aunties and uncles who filled the rehearsal dinner earlier that evening with toasts to tradition and legacy. I had kept Brielle hidden for 3 long years, because in our world love like ours didn't exist. It was a phase, a mistake, a shame that could ruin reputations and businesses. I remembered the first time I saw her at a small gallery opening in Soho 3 years ago. I had gone alone to escape another family dinner, where marriage questions flew like arrows. Brielle was there photographing the event, her camera slung over one shoulder, her laugh cutting through the crowd like sunlight. She had short dark hair that fell across her forehead in a way that made my stomach flip, and eyes that saw straight through the polished mask I wore for everyone else. We talked for hours that night about art, about life, about feeling trapped in expectations. By the end of the evening we were sharing coffee at a late-night diner. And by the next week we were stealing kisses in her tiny Brooklyn studio. It was never supposed to be serious. I told myself it was just a fling, something to get out of my system before I settled into the life my parents planned. But Brielle wasn't a fling. She was the first person who made me feel seen, not as the dutiful daughter or the rising executive, but as Talia, the woman who dreamed of traveling the world without a checklist of family obligations. We built a secret life together, late night drives up the Hudson, stolen weekends in upstate cabins where we could hold hands in public without fear. She called me wife in private after we exchanged simple silver rings one rainy afternoon in her apartment, promising each other that one day we would find a way to be together openly. But that day never came. The pressure from home grew heavier. My father had health scares, my mother cried about how she wanted grandchildren who would carry the family name. The community watched every move I made at temple events, at charity galas. Coming out would mean losing everything, my job, my family, my place in the only world I had ever known. So I pushed Brielle away time and again. Last month we had our biggest fight yet in her studio. She had packed a bag ready to leave for a photography job in California, and she gave me an ultimatum. Choose me or lose me, Talia. I can't keep being your secret. I begged her to wait just a little longer, but she left with tears in her eyes, and I went home and told my parents yes to Marcus. Now here I was the night before the wedding, staring at her text. My thumb hovered over the reply button. How did she even know about the wedding? I had never told her the exact date, but Brielle always had a way of finding out things. The suite felt too small, the air too thick. Outside the window the lights of Manhattan glittered like they were mocking me. I could hear laughter from the hallway, probably cousins still celebrating. My dress sparkled under the lamp, a perfect symbol of the perfect lie. I thought about my mother Lon, who had sacrificed her own dreams to support my father's business, working double shifts in the early years, so I could go to good schools. My father Min, who taught me that family came before everything, even happiness. My sister Lynn, who looked up to me as the one who would make our parents proud. And Marcus, who deserved someone who could love him fully, not someone whose heart belonged to another woman. But Brielle, who made me laugh until my sides hurt, who held me through panic attacks about work, who saw the real me. The message sat there waiting. I typed back with shaking fingers, where exactly? Her reply came instantly, JFK Terminal 4 Gate 12. I love you, wife. Come home to me. Tears blurred the screen. I glanced at the door. If I left now, I could slip out the service elevator before anyone noticed. The consequences would be catastrophic. The wedding canceled, the families humiliated, the business deal in jeopardy. But staying meant killing the only part of me that felt alive. My heart hammered as I grabbed my coat and keys. This was the moment everything would break. I slipped into the hallway, the carpet muffling my steps, and headed for the elevator, praying no one would see me. The descent to the lobby felt eternal. Every ding of the floors brought me closer to the point of no return. Outside, the cool night air hit my face like a slap. I hailed a cab and gave the driver the address, my voice barely above a whisper. As the city blurred past, I replayed every choice that led here, the lies, the stolen moments, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if love was worth this pain. By the time we reached the airport, my phone had 3 missed calls from my mother wondering why I wasn't answering texts about tomorrow morning's hair appointment. I turned it to silent. Terminal 4 was bustling even at midnight. I scanned the crowds, my pulse racing, until I spotted her. Brielle stood near gate 12 wearing the leather jacket I had given her for her birthday, her eyes lighting up the moment she saw me. She didn't run to me, but her smile said everything. "Wife, you came." I reached her and the world narrowed to just us. Her arms wrapped around me, and for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. But even in that embrace, the guilt clawed at me. What had I just done? The cab ride back to her apartment in Brooklyn was quiet at first. Brielle held my hand the whole way, her thumb tracing circles on my skin. I told her everything, the pressure, the rehearsal, the dress hanging like a noose. She listened without interrupting, her face soft with understanding, but edged with the pain of waiting so long. When we got inside her small studio, the familiarity hit me like a wave. The photos on the walls, the plants she nurtured, the bed where we had whispered promises. We sat on the couch and she made tea the way I liked it, strong with honey. "Talia, you don't have to go back. We can leave tonight, drive somewhere, start over." I stared into the mug. "But my family, the business, everything they built for me." She nodded, but her eyes were sad. "I know. And I know what it will cost you. But what about the cost of staying? Of waking up every day next to someone who isn't me?" I didn't have an answer. The clock ticked past 2 in the morning. My phone vibrated with more messages from home, but I couldn't look. Brielle pulled me close and we lay there fully clothed, just holding each other. Sleep didn't come easy. My mind raced with images of my mother's face when she learned the truth, my father's disappointment, the whispers in the community about the Nguyen girl who ran away. By dawn I knew I couldn't go back to the hotel. Not yet. But the decision to leave forever still felt impossible. Brielle kissed my forehead. "Whatever you choose, I love you." That love was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. As the sun rose over Brooklyn, I realized the real wedding wasn't the one planned for today. It was this choice between the life I was given and the life I wanted. And the price of either would be devastating. I couldn't stay hidden forever. By 9 that morning my phone had exploded with calls and texts from my mother, my sister, and even Marcus, who sounded worried but confused. "Where are you, Talia? The ceremony starts in 5 hours. I sat on Brielle's couch staring at the screen, my stomach in knots. Brielle made breakfast, eggs and toast, simple and comforting, but I could barely eat. She sat across from me, her eyes steady. "You have to tell them something. Or we can just go. Pack a bag right now and drive north." I shook my head. They deserve better than a disappearing act. My voice cracked. I built this lie for years. Now I have to face it. She reached for my hand. "Then call your mom. I'll be right here." I stepped onto the tiny balcony overlooking the street and dialed my mother's number. Lon answered on the first ring, her voice sharp with panic. "Talia, where are you?" "The makeup artist is waiting. The florist needs confirmation. Everything is falling apart." I swallowed hard. "Mom, I'm not coming." The line went silent for a long moment, then her tone shifted to disbelief. "What do you mean not coming? This is your wedding. Your future. The family is counting on you." I closed my eyes and the words spilled out. "I can't marry Marcus. I don't love him. Not the way a wife should." She laughed nervously, at first thinking it was cold feet. "Every bride feels this way. Come home now and we will talk. No one has to know." But I pushed on. "Mom, there's someone else. Someone I've loved for a long time." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Who? Tell me." I hesitated, then said her name. "Brielle. The woman from the gallery." Silence again, heavier this time. When she spoke again, it was in Vietnamese mixed with English, the way she did when she was furious. Con Dien Kong. You are crazy. This is not real. You are confused. Come home right now and we will fix this. No one needs to know about this nonsense. The community will talk. Your father's health. The business deal with the trans. Everything will collapse. I felt tears burning. Mom, this is real. I have been hiding for years because I knew you would react like this. But I can't hide anymore. She started crying, then yelling for my father to come to the phone. Min took over, his voice booming. Talia, you are embarrassing the entire family. Get in a cab and come home immediately. We will pretend this conversation never happened. Marcus is a good man. He will provide for you. I gripped the railing. Dad, I can't. I love Brielle. She makes me happy in a way no one else can. He scoffed. Happy? What about duty? What about respect? We came to this country for you girls to have better lives, and this is how you repay us. Running off with some woman. I will not allow it. The call ended with him hanging up and me sliding down the wall sobbing. Brielle came out and held me without saying a word. Her presence was the only anchor. Hours passed in a blur of more calls from Lynn, my sister, who was torn between loyalty to our parents and worry for me. She whispered that the guests were arriving at the venue and the family was in chaos trying to stall. Marcus had been told I was sick, but rumors were spreading. Brielle suggested we go for a walk to clear my head. We wandered the Brooklyn streets hand in hand for the first time in public without fear of being seen by someone from my world. It felt liberating and terrifying. People smiled at us, a couple holding hands on a sunny morning. But my phone kept buzzing. By afternoon, my father left a voicemail threatening to cut me off financially and emotionally. Your name will be erased from the family if you do this. The words cut deep. I had always been the golden child, the one who studied hard, got the scholarships, climbed the corporate ladder. Now I was the traitor. Back at the apartment, Brielle and I talked for hours. She shared her own story of coming out to her parents years ago, and the slow rebuilding of their relationship. It gave me hope, but mine felt different. Our community was smaller, tighter. Disgrace traveled fast. She reminded me of the promises we made, the future we planned, trips to Europe, opening a studio together. I wanted that life so badly. But the guilt was a living thing inside me, eating away at every happy memory. As evening fell, I made a decision. I wouldn't go back to the wedding, but I needed to face my family in person. Brielle supported me, though I could see the fear in her eyes that I might change my mind once confronted. We drove to my parents' house in Queens, the familiar streets feeling foreign now. The lights were on inside and cars filled the driveway. My heart pounded as I knocked. My mother opened the door, her eyes red from crying. She pulled me inside without a word. The living room was full of relatives, some I hadn't seen in years, all staring at me with mixtures of pity and judgment. My father stood by the window, his face stone. Marcus was not there, thank God. The confrontation lasted hours. Accusations flew. Selfish. Ungrateful. Sick. My aunt whispered about bringing shame on the ancestors. Lynn tried to defend me, but even she looked hurt. I stood my ground, explaining the years of hiding the love I felt for Brielle, the impossibility of living a double life. My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing that she had failed as a parent. My father said if I walked out tonight, I was no longer his daughter. The words shattered something inside me. By midnight, I left with Brielle waiting in the car. She drove us back to Brooklyn in silence. I cried the whole way. The price was already higher than I imagined. But for the first time, I felt the faint spark of freedom. The next morning, the news spread through the community like wildfire. My phone filled with messages, some supportive from distant cousins, others cutting from close family. Brielle held me through it all. We spent the day planning small steps, a new apartment in a different neighborhood, me looking for freelance work to replace my job, which I knew would be affected. Doubt crept in during quiet moments. Had I destroyed my family for a chance at happiness? Was love worth this much pain? Brielle sensed it, and we talked late into the night about what commitment really meant. She didn't pressure me, but her steady presence reminded me why I had chosen this path. As the week progressed, the initial shock gave way to a new reality. My sister Lynn texted, secretly checking on me. It was a small lifeline. The world hadn't ended, but it had cracked wide open. And in the cracks, I saw the possibility of a life that was truly mine. The days after the cancelled wedding blurred into a haze of avoidance and survival. I moved what little I could from my old apartment into Brielle's studio, packing under the cover of night like a fugitive. My job at the marketing firm called me in for a meeting where the partners, all friends of my father's, expressed deep disappointment. They suggested I take indefinite leave to sort out personal matters. Translation: I was out. Brielle picked up extra photography gigs to cover rent while I updated my resume with a heavy heart. Each rejection email felt like another punishment. The community was relentless. At the Vietnamese grocery store, whispers followed me. At the temple, my mother's friends turned away. I stopped going out alone. Brielle became my shield and my light. We cooked meals together, watched old movies, and made love with a tenderness that spoke of shared survival. But tension simmered beneath the surface. One evening, as we sat on the fire escape, she asked the question I dreaded. "Do you regret it, Talia?" I looked at the city lights. Some moments, yes. The way my mother sounded on the phone. The way my father wouldn't even say my name. But then I look at you and no. Never. She nodded, but I saw the shadow in her eyes. She had waited 3 years. Now that I was here, the reality of my baggage weighed on us both. My sister Lynn became the bridge. She met me in secret at a cafe in Manhattan, her eyes darting around as if spies were everywhere. "Mom cries every night. Dad won't talk about you. But I miss you, sis." She slipped me an envelope with some cash from her savings. "Take it. You need it more than they do." Her kindness broke me. I hugged her tight, promising to find a way to repair what I could. But repair felt impossible when my father sent a formal letter through a lawyer severing my ties to the family trust and the business shares I was supposed to inherit. The letter called my choices a betrayal of everything they had sacrificed. I read it aloud to Brielle, and we both sat in silence afterward. The financial hit was real. I took temp jobs, data entry, coffee runs, anything to contribute. Brielle encouraged me to pursue freelance marketing, but the stigma followed. Potential clients from the community declined politely. One afternoon, a major client I had courted for months canceled after hearing rumors. I came home furious and defeated. Brielle listened, then suggested we take a short trip upstate to clear our heads. We drove to a small cabin in the Catskills, the same place we had hidden away years ago. There, away from the noise, we talked for hours. She shared stories of her own family struggles, how her parents eventually came around after years of distance. I opened up about the nightmares where my mother disowned me publicly. We hiked during the day and sat by the fire at night. For the first time since the wedding night, I felt hope returning. On the last evening, Brielle pulled out her camera and took photos of me laughing by the lake. "These are for our new chapter," she said. Back in the city, the confrontations escalated. My mother showed up unannounced at Brielle's building one afternoon, her face pale and determined. I let her in, though Brielle stayed in the bedroom, giving us space. Lon sat on the couch, twisting her hands. "Come home, Talia. We can say it was a breakdown. Marcus still cares for you. The family will forgive." I shook my head. "Mom, I can't live that lie anymore. It was killing me slowly." She cried, then anger took over. "You think this woman loves you more than your own blood? She will leave when times get hard. You are throwing away your future for a fantasy." Her words stung because deep down I feared them. After she left, Brielle emerged, and we held each other. That night, doubt crept in stronger. Was I being selfish? Had I hurt too many people? Brielle sensed it, and we argued for the first time since I arrived. "If you want to go back, I won't stop you," she said, her voice breaking. "But don't string me along." I promised her I was staying. The next day, I blocked my mother's number temporarily to breathe. Lynn texted updates. The business deal with Marcus' family was strained but holding. My father had aged overnight. The guilt returned full force. Brielle and I decided to seek counseling together, a neutral therapist who helped us navigate the layers of trauma, family expectations, and new beginnings. Sessions were raw. I cried through descriptions of the wedding that never happened. Brielle spoke of her fear of being second choice. Slowly we rebuilt trust. Weeks turned into a month. I landed a small freelance contract outside the community. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Brielle sold some photos to a gallery. Small wins. But the social fallout continued. Old friends stopped replying. Invitations dried up. I learned to live with the isolation. One night, as we lay in bed, Brielle whispered, "I am proud of you for choosing truth." In that moment, the price felt worth it. Yet I knew the biggest tests were still ahead. The family wouldn't stay silent forever. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was in the middle of a video meeting for a new client. My father's number flashed on the screen and I excused myself, stepping into the hallway of the co-working space I had joined. "Dad." His voice was cold, formal. "We need to talk. In person. Tonight at the house. No excuses." I agreed because avoiding it forever was impossible. Brielle offered to come with me for support, but I refused. This was my mess to face. She kissed me goodbye, her eyes full of worry. "Be careful." The drive to Queens felt like driving to my own execution. The house looked the same, the garden my mother tended, the porch light glowing warmly. But inside everything had changed. My parents sat in the living room like judges. Lynn hovered in the kitchen, unsure. My father spoke first. "You have embarrassed us beyond repair. The community talks. Business partners ask questions. We have lost face." I sat straight. "I am sorry for the pain." But I couldn't live the lie. My mother interrupted. "Pain? You call this pain? We gave you everything. Education opportunities, a good match. And you spit on it for what? A woman." She spat the word. I defended myself calmly at first, explaining the years of hiding, the authenticity I found with Brielle. They countered with scripture, with tradition, with stories of ancestors who sacrificed personal desires for family honor. The argument escalated. My father slammed his hand on the table. "If you continue this, you are dead to us. No inheritance, no contact, no forgiveness." My mother added through tears. "Think of your sister. Her chances for a good marriage will suffer because of your selfishness." Lynn stepped in then. "Stop. This isn't fair. Talia has a right to her life." But even her defense was laced with hurt. I felt the betrayal in her eyes too. She had covered for me once, but now the family rift divided even us. Hours passed with raised voices, accusations, and long silences. I revealed details I had hidden, the secret trips, the rings, the depth of my love for Brielle. They called it delusion sickness. My father threatened to expose Brielle to her own family if I didn't end it. The threat chilled me. I stood up. "I love her. And I love you. But I won't choose between you anymore." As I left, my mother followed me to the door, grabbing my arm. "Please, Talia. Come back before it's too late." Her plea broke my heart, but I gently pulled away. Outside, Brielle waited in the car. She didn't ask details, just drove us home. That night I couldn't sleep. The confrontation replayed in my head, every harsh word, every tear. Brielle held me, but I could feel the strain on her too. She had become the villain in their eyes, the homewrecker. The next morning a package arrived at the studio. It was my belongings from the family home, boxed up with no note. Clothes, photos, childhood mementos, all returned like I was a stranger. The finality hit hard. I broke down on the floor. Brielle sat with me for hours. When the tears stopped, we talked about building our own family, our own traditions. But the damage was done. My freelance work suffered as word spread further. A potential landlord rejected our application after a background check that somehow included community references. We found a smaller place in a different borough. The move was exhausting but symbolic. Weeks later, Lynn met me again, this time with news that my father had suffered a mild heart scare. "Stress-related," she said pointedly. The guilt nearly swallowed me. I wanted to visit, but my mother warned me away. "You will only make it worse." Brielle suggested writing a letter. I spent days crafting it, pouring out love, regret, and hope for reconciliation. I mailed it but received no response. The silence was its own punishment. Through it all, Brielle remained constant. We celebrated small milestones, her gallery show, my first big freelance check. But the arguments increased. She felt I was still emotionally tied to my family, pulling away during intimate moments. I accused her of not understanding the cultural weight. One fight ended with her sleeping on the couch. The next day we apologized and recommitted. Counseling helped, but the external pressure tested us daily. A community event I used to attend posted photos online excluding me completely. Stung. Brielle reminded me we were creating new circles, meeting other queer couples at support groups. Slowly new friendships formed. Yet the ache for my family never faded. Months passed. I turned 30 in a quiet dinner with Brielle and 2 new friends. No calls from home. The birthday gift from Lynn arrived late, a simple necklace with a note saying she loved me but couldn't defy our parents yet. That small connection kept me going. The price of my choice was ongoing loss, financial strain, emotional exhaustion. But waking up next to Brielle every morning, the woman who called me wife without shame, made the fight worthwhile. Still, I wondered how much more we could endure before something broke. The breaking point came unexpectedly 6 months after the wedding that never happened. I had started a small marketing consultancy working from home, building clients outside the Vietnamese network. Brielle had landed a steady job at a photography studio. We had settled into a routine in our modest apartment in Jersey City, commuting together, dreaming of saving for a bigger place. The family silence had become normal, though it still hurt. Then Lynn called one evening, her voice urgent. "Dad is in the hospital again. Pneumonia this time. He is asking for you." My heart stopped. Despite everything, I went. Brielle drove me, dropping me at the entrance with a kiss. "I'll be waiting." In the hospital room, my father looked frail, tubes and monitors beeping. My mother sat beside him, her face etched with exhaustion. Lynn stood in the corner. Dad opened his eyes when I entered. "Talia." His voice was weak. I sat by the bed, tears already falling. "I'm here." He reached for my hand, the first physical contact in months. We talked haltingly. He admitted the business was struggling without the merger. My mother had been working extra to keep things afloat. He didn't apologize, but he asked about my life. I told him the truth, the struggles, the small successes, the love I found. He listened without interrupting. For a moment it felt like healing. Then my mother spoke. "If you want to be part of this family again, you must end it with that woman. Come back, marry Marcus or someone suitable." The room tensed. My father nodded weakly. "Family first." The old pressure returned full force. I stood up, my voice steady but kind. "I love you both. But I can't erase who I am. Brielle is my family too." The disappointment in their eyes was crushing. Lynn walked me out afterward. "You did the right thing, but it hurts them so much." Back home, Brielle listened as I recounted everything. She was supportive, but I could see the toll on her. The hospital visit opened old wounds. Over the next weeks, my father recovered, but the family remained divided. Lynn visited us, secretly bringing news and small gifts. My mother sent a letter begging me to reconsider. The emotional whiplash left me drained. Brielle and I argued more frequently. She felt like an outsider in my healing process. One night, after a particularly heated fight, she packed a bag. "Maybe you need time with them without me complicating it." I begged her to stay. We talked through the night, reaffirming our vows. The next day we attended a pride event together, holding hands openly. It was liberating. New friends celebrated our story. For the first time I felt part of a community that accepted me fully. But the cost remained. My consultancy grew slowly, but I lost a big contract when a client learned of my family rift through mutual connections. Financially, we tightened belts. Emotionally, I worked through therapy on the grief of partial disownment. Brielle started a project photographing queer couples, building her portfolio with our story included. The visibility brought both support and backlash. Online comments from anonymous community members called me a disgrace. I learned to ignore most, but some cut deep. A surprise came when an aunt reached out privately, expressing quiet support. Small cracks in the wall. As the 1-year mark of the cancelled wedding approached, we planned a quiet celebration, just us. Brielle surprised me with a weekend getaway to the Catskills cabin. There we renewed our promises under the stars. I reflected on the journey, the betrayals I felt from family, the betrayals they felt from me, the sacrifices on both sides. Love had won, but at a price that would echo forever. The awakening was gradual. I no longer saw the choice as all or nothing, but as a daily decision to live authentically, while leaving room for future reconciliation. Brielle and I grew stronger through the fire. Yet the question lingered in quiet moments. Had the pain been necessary, or could I have found a middle path? 1 year and 2 months after that fateful text, the pieces of my new life had begun to fit together, though the edges were jagged. Brielle and I had moved into a brighter apartment in Brooklyn with a small balcony where we grew herbs and shared morning coffee. My consultancy had stabilized with steady clients in creative fields far from my old world. Brielle's photography career took off after a solo exhibit that featured images of our journey, subtle portraits of hands, intertwined cityscapes symbolizing escape, and the quiet strength of chosen family. We had friends now, a diverse circle that included other women who understood the weight of coming out in traditional cultures. Lynn visited more openly, sometimes bringing our mother's homemade pho as a peace offering, though my mother never came herself. My father sent a card on my birthday, no words, just his signature, but it was something. The community remained largely closed, but the whispers had faded to background noise. I volunteered at an LGBTQ support center mentoring young Vietnamese American women, navigating similar conflicts. Each story I heard mirrored my own, reminding me the fight was bigger than me. Brielle and I talked about the future, adopting kids, traveling the world we had postponed. The scars remained. Nights when I woke from dreams of my mother's tears or my father's silence. Days when a familiar scent or song triggered waves of guilt. Brielle was patient, holding space for the grief without trying to fix it. We had learned that love wasn't the absence of pain, but the choice to keep choosing each other through it. A turning point came when my sister Lynn invited us to a small family gathering, not the full clan but a neutral dinner with just her and a few cousins who had softened. Brielle was nervous, but I held her hand as we walked in. The evening was awkward at first, polite questions, careful avoidance of the past. But as the night wore on, laughter returned. My aunt even asked Brielle about her work. No one mentioned marriage or duty. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a door cracking open. On the drive home, Brielle squeezed my hand. "You did this. Your courage opened the way." I smiled through tears. We both did. Back in our apartment, we sat on the balcony under the stars. I reflected on the price each of us had paid. My family lost the merger, the perfect daughter image, the illusion of control. Brielle had waited, endured doubt and public judgment. I had lost financial security, community belonging, and pieces of my identity tied to being the good daughter. But we had gained truth, freedom, and a love that felt unbreakable. The internal conflicts that once tore me apart now felt like lessons. Duty mattered, but not at the cost of my soul. Societal prejudice still existed, but it no longer defined me. Moral dilemmas remained, but I had chosen the path that let me look in the mirror without shame. As the city hummed below us, Brielle rested her head on my shoulder. "Wife, what are you thinking?" I smiled. "That I'm home." The next morning I sent a letter to my parents, not begging but sharing my truth again, with photos of our life, the small joys, the growth. I ended it with an open invitation. The response might never come, but sending it brought peace. Brielle and I planned a simple ceremony for ourselves, a commitment reaffirmation with close friends. No big white dress, no family drama, just us exchanging new rings and promises under the open sky. Life wasn't perfect. Setbacks came, a lost client, a strained call with my mother. But the foundation held. I had awakened to the truth that happiness wasn't given, it was built through hard choices and unwavering love. The woman who once hid in shadows now walked in light. And the woman waiting at the airport that night had been the key. Looking back at the road from the Plaza Hotel suite to this balcony, I saw every confrontation, every tear, every decision as necessary steps. The price was high, but the reward was a life that was undeniably mine. Did Talia do the right thing by choosing authentic love over family obligation? Or was her escape a selfish act that shattered lives for personal happiness?